Now that we have art and we have a project, let's start building a game. The first thing that I want to do is learn how to build a little bit of an environment and add a player. So we're going to expand out our sample scene so that we can see the main camera and our global light. Again, if you don't have this scene open, just go to your assets folder, go to scenes, and double click on sample scene. That should open it right up. Once we've done that though, let's go over to the ground folder of our art folder and choose grass, and then find the grass mid. Let's see, where is it? Right here, grass mid. We're going to take the grass mid and I'm just going to grab it and drag it right into the hierarchy here. Not over here, but over here into the hierarchy. That's going to center it and drop it right in the middle of our game world. I can use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and remember that middle mouse button to pan around. Now, I don't like the position of that. If I go to my game view, you'll see that it's got grass right here in the center of our world. I want that to be down kind of near the bottom of our world. So let's make a change to do that. But if we do it right here and I just grab, for instance, this Y position, click and drag and pull it down, it will move it down. I could get it into a pretty good place, but it's going to be inconsistent because I haven't done a very important thing yet. First, let's set this back to a 0, and then let's go up to this game view window area and take a look where it says free aspect. What this means is that our game will just kind of adjust and scale based on the view of, or the size of the window. So the aspect ratio will adjust based on how much space we have. If we have more wide space, it'll go widescreen. If we have less, it'll go nice, tall, and portrait. We don't really want that. We want instead to be in a fixed aspect ratio when we're building a game. So that way we know what things are going to look like and it'll be consistent. Otherwise, we're going to have things looking all kinds of weird once we switch to an actual device that's playing full screen at 1080p or 4K or whatever the resolution you end up building at is. So what resolution do we want to choose? Well, by default, we go with full HD 1920 by 1080. It's what I would usually recommend. Don't try any of the others yet until you have a need for them. So let's switch over to that. Notice we've got some bars here now on the side, and as I drag it, we keep that aspect ratio. That's what we want. Now, if I reset my layout, I go back to Window, Layouts, and Default, it is going to reset that back to free aspect. So I need to make sure to change it back to 1080 or 1920 by 1080. We'll call it 1080p a lot from the old school TV times. So what's a value that I could put this grass at to have it be down here at the bottom? How can I move it around, or how can I lower it? I showed you that I can click on this Y and just drag the mouse down to move it. Look at that. And you can see the number there changing. Let's see what that's actually doing though. If we go over to the scene view, you can see that I've got an object here with my grass, and I can kind of click on it. If I click the right spot, I get the mouse, I can drag it around. If I hit the W key, I'll get these arrows, and then I can just drag it, oh look, up and down or left and right, depending on which arrow I grab. Right goes left and right, and the green goes up and down. If I hit the E key, I can rotate it and spin it around. I don't want to do that, so I'll hit Control Z and undo my change. And if I hit the R key, I can actually scale it up and make it nice and big, or scale it down. I also don't want to do that, so I'll hit Control Z. I also don't want this weird position, so I'm going to change that back to a 0, and then we're going to move it downward. So to move it downward, I'm going to hit W, go into move mode, but I'm not going to just drag it down like this. Instead, let's Control Z. I'm going to hold my Control key, which is going to enable snapping. Now watch this value here, this position Y value. As I drag it down holding Control, it's going to go down by increments of 0.25. So it's going to go down by 1/4 of a meter is what that is. And if you're not familiar with a meter, it's about a little less than 3 feet. So got to get used to that. You're going to have to get used to meter conversions. But as I drag it down, it snaps down by 1/4 meters, and I can get it all the way down to, what is this, about -4.5, where it's right on the bottom, touching this white line. You're wondering, what's this white line? Well, that's actually the camera. That's showing us where the camera bounds are. If I go back to the scene view, this is showing us kind of the edge of the camera, and the game view is showing us the actual game rendered. We can, by the way, drag these around. Watch this. If I drag this and see it, I can now see them side by side. I can drag this around and see it on both of the views. Again, Control Z to undo that. I can grab my game view and just drag it back over here to dock them side by side. You can always go to Layouts, Default if you mess that up. Just remember to change back to full HD. All right, so now we've got some ground here. What can we do with it? What if we want a whole bunch of ground? We want ground to go all the way across the bottom. What should we do? Should we just go back in, find that ground object? Let's go find it. and then drag another grass mid out here and try to lay it out and line it up. I mean, technically we could do that. It would be a terrible way to do things. That would be super inefficient, and it would probably be really, really painful and take a long time. So let's undo that. Let's go select this grass, and I'm going to hit delete. That second grass, not the first one, just the second one, the one that said grass mid with a 1 after it. Then let's go select the grass here that we've got, and let's do a little bit of a modification to it. Down here on the inspector, you see that we've got our transform that we've kind of looked at and moved things around with, and we've looked at a couple times. And then we've got the sprite renderer. This is the component on our object that's making this sprite appear. We've got 3 objects in our level, a camera, a light, and 1 object that has a sprite on it, and it's named grass mid because that's the name of the sprite when we drug it out. So what does this sprite renderer do? It shows our sprite. It gives us a couple different options of the way that we can show our sprite. Right now the draw mode is set to simple. If I click on it, I can actually change that to tiled. And a tiled sprite will allow us to repeat a texture and have kind of like a tiled background or a tiled floor or anything else that you've seen tiled in a video game. Now to increase the tiling size, we can just modify the width, crank that up. Make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever, 10. I'm going to change this to be about, let's go with a 20, and then go over to the scene view and see what it looks like. It's going just past our camera view. We've got this nice long piece of grass. Let's go back to the game view though, and then let's look at the sprite renderer and see what this little warning is, because we notice we've got this big exclamation mark, and it's yellow, and it might be a little concerning. It says, sprite tiling may not appear correctly because the sprite used is not generated with full rect or sprite mode set to polygon mode. To fix this, change the mesh type in the sprite's import settings to full rect and sprite mode to either single or multiple. Now, for our use case, it actually works totally fine because the way that these sprites are done, it's not really an issue, but it is something that I hate having there, so we'll just go get rid of the error by doing exactly what it said. So it says to change the sprite mode, where is this? To fix it, change the mesh type, in the sprite's import settings to full rect. So we go find our sprite. To do that, we'll select the sprite down here. That's the actual sprite in our project view, not the one on the renderer. And then we'll go to the mesh type right here, which is set to type by default, and change it to full rect. Hit apply, and now our error will be gone once we get rid of the grass. All that's really doing is making it pull in the entire sprite and not trim out edges if there were transparent empty corners or edges, but these sprites don't have any empty corners or edges, so it doesn't make any actual difference. That's why it's not actually changing anything. So now we've got our ground down below, and I think it's time for us to add our player. To add a player, we're going to go to the players folder. We're going to select the 128 by 256 folder. This is the one where every sprite is the same height. The other folder has the sprites at different heights. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into ducking and jumping and all that stuff. But for now, let's just go into I'm going to go with blue folder, and I'm going to find the blue alien that's idle. Now, I can't see the names here, so I'm going to drag the little slider here so I can see them in list view. And I'm going to take the one that says, what's his name? Alien blue front, and I'll drag it right out into the scene view. Now I've got an alien sitting here right in the middle of our game, and I should be able to press play and now have an amazing alien game with some grass underneath. Let's see it. So there we go. We've got our game, and it works, but it doesn't actually do anything. So let's stop playing. To stop playing, we click the play button again, or use Control or Command P. It's another hotkey I highly recommend you get used to. Control P, Command P to start and stop playing it. Toggles it on and off. So nothing happened yet because we haven't set up anything for our game. We've got no code, no physics, no interactions, just kind of a static scene that we've drawn with some sprites. Not so much a game yet. So in the next section, we're going to start hooking things up. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we save our level. To save our level, we're going to go to File and hit Save. That should get rid of that little star there, and our sample scene name should just say sample scene without a sample scene star. I don't particularly like that, though. I don't like us working in a scene named sample scene, or that we don't have a level of our own yet. So let's save one more time. But to do that, let's go to File and choose Save As. We're going to go into the Scenes folder, and we're going to name our level Level 1. So right here in the File Name section, we'll choose or type in the word level 1 with a space and hit enter. We now have our scene showing up as level 1 here, and go check this out. If we go to the assets folder, go to the scenes folder, we now have a level 1. We also have a sample scene. I can double click on it and see, yeah, it looks exactly the same. Go back to level 1, looks exactly the same. So not anything too exciting. I want to make sure that I don't accidentally work in this sample scene though. So now that I have my level 1, it's working and it's loaded, I'll go down, select the sample scene in my project, and hit delete, and delete it. Again, make sure that you're in level 1 before you do that and that you've saved it and it's all working. Don't want to go delete that, otherwise you have to go recreate it afterwards. Now that we've got that saved, we're good to go. In the next section, we'll start to hook up our physics.